Hey guys, tonight we begin with the brutally hot, soot-covered life of a man who quite literally forged the medieval world, the blacksmith. You've probably seen them in movies, hammering glowing iron in slow motion, sparks flying like fireworks on cue. But here, there's no orchestra swelling in the background. No applause, just you, standing barefoot in a dirt floor forge with smoke in your lungs and a hammer that's heavier than your dreams. You're born into it. There's no choice, no sorting hat, no career counselor gently suggesting this path. You're your father's son, and your father's hands look like they've been punched by time itself. Scarred, cracked, hardened. He holds you once, roughly, and from then on, you're just part of the forge. The scent of your early years isn't of milk or meadows, it's charcoal, wet iron, burnt leather. You learn not to cry, not because you're tough, but because tears just add to the steam and nobody's got time for steam. The first lesson comes before you even know words. Don't touch that. It's hot. You do, of course. Everyone does once. Then never again. Your crib might as well be a coal bucket. Toys. You had tongs, they pinched, you learned. While other village children played with sticks or tried to teach a chicken how to dance, you were squatting by the forge, your tiny hands covered in soot, pretending to be strong. By age 6, you're your father's apprentice. That sounds official. It isn't. It means you're on firewood duty, bellows duty, floor scrubbing, while someone's shoe is on fire duty. You haul coal, you restack the iron, you stoke the flames with hands that haven't stopped trembling since you saw a nail spark too close to your eye. You also listen, carefully, because your father doesn't teach by speaking. He teaches by glaring, grunting, and occasionally hurling a ladle. You get one warning per year, if you're lucky. The forge is loud. It's a percussion concert performed exclusively in curses and clangs. You don't remember your first word, but it was probably hot or ow. Your clothes are hand-me-downs, but not from siblings. No one else is stupid enough to wear these burned-through rags. Your shoes are leather patches stitched onto more regret, and everything you own smells like ash and fatigue. Other kids your age are learning to milk goats or toss hay or flirt awkwardly at market. You are learning the angle of swing that makes a horseshoe curl right instead of screaming off the anvil and embedding itself in a wall. A lesson learned by example. Painful example. You watch your father closely. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, it's always the same advice. Hit it harder. Don't mess it up, get out of the way. One time he nods. Just once, you're 12, it's the best day of your life. You develop muscles in places that other kids haven't even bruised yet. Your arms feel heavy, your legs ache, your back gets that dull, throbbing pain that makes you lie still at night and wonder if you'll wake up bent permanently like a rusted hinge. And yet no one cares, pain isn't discussed, it's assumed. Like the fire, like the taxes, like the smell. Speaking of the fire, it's not just central to the forge, it is the forge, it's alive. It breathes, it devours, and your job is to feed it, coax it, and not die doing it. You pump the bellows with your entire body until your spine feels like it's been pickled. You sweat until you forget what dry skin feels like, and when the wind shifts, you learn what it means to inhale a day's worth of smoke in a single blink. Still, somehow it becomes familiar. The iron glows, the hammer falls, the sparks dance like fireflies that hate you. Your ears stop flinching at the noise. Your eyes adjust to the glare, your skin toughens like you're being slowly wrapped in bark, and your childhood, if you could call it that, quietly slips away into the smoke. Historians still argue whether blacksmithing was truly a respected trade or just a tolerated necessity. Either way, you're not here for status, you're here because you were born here, and you'll stay until your hands no longer close into fists, your breath gives out, or your son is ready to pick up the hammer you've been too tired to put down. This is your world, blackened, blistered, baked in heat. There's no escape, just rhythm, fire. Metal. Repeat, section 2, you don't get to grow up in stages. You just get taller next to the fire. Your childhood is over by the time your voice cracks. It's not because of puberty. It's the soot. The smoke has roughened your throat into gravel. You speak less, grunt more. A language passed down by men who've said all they needed to by age 30. You're not a boy anymore, but you're not a man either. You're something in between, a shape defined by heat and pressure, not time. You wake when the fire wakes, sometimes before. The forge sleeps light, the coals never truly die, and neither do the demands. There's no schedule. Only orders: shoe a horse, patch a gate. Mend a plough, fix a cracked bell, a broken hinge, a lock twisted shut by winter's bite. You never know what they'll bring. And it's never something easy. The moment you show you can hold the hammer, really hold it, not wobble like a child playing knight, they stop calling you boy. That sounds like respect. It's not. It means they expect more, pay the same, and watch less closely. From here on out, the mistakes are yours, and oh, you make them. Bent nails, split axe heads, a sword that warps just slightly wrong and costs you a month's worth of goodwill from the captain who ordered it. You don't get second chances, just second attempts, which are unpaid and judged twice as hard. Still, you learn. Not in a school, not even from your father, not directly. You learn by watching metal glow, watching the shade of red, the pulse of heat, the way it sings or doesn't when the hammer lands. You learn to read iron the way a miller reads grain, by instinct, by bruises, by memory. Some nights your hands won't stop shaking, not from fear, not anymore, from overuse. Your fingers spasm while you eat. Your arms twitch when you're still. You sleep with your arms curled against your chest, palms burnt and blistered like your body's trying to hide the evidence of the day. And while you're learning the work, you're also learning silence. It lives in the corners of the forge, between the hammer strikes, under the hiss of quenched steel. You start to feel it, that heavy quiet, the kind that only comes from a job that doesn't end, a heat that never lets you forget who's really in charge. The village kids don't come around anymore. You smell wrong to them, like smoke and old grease. You carry yourself differently, heavier, slumped, already older than your face. You pass them at market and they look at you the way they look at oxen, strong, useful, distant. You start to feel it in your back first, that slow grind of spine on labor. You're 15, but you get out of bed like you're 50. You walk with a rhythm now, a half-step limp that comes from favoring one leg over the other after dropping a full iron bar on your foot 2 winters ago. It healed, sort of. Meals are brief, usually standing. Bread with bits of ash from your hands, stew with the tang of iron from the ladle. You eat because you must. You don't taste much anymore. The forge has burned your senses dull. Once, during a rare pause, you tried to count the scars on your hands. You lost track around the knuckles, some new, some old. One from that time the tongs slipped, another from where a rivet popped off and bit your thumb like a hot insect. You stop counting. The number isn't the point. You don't think about leaving. You wouldn't know how. You were born beside the fire and the anvil. Your thoughts are shaped like nails, horseshoes, blades. You look at a problem and wonder what size hammer it needs. Historians still argue whether blacksmith apprenticeships were harsh by design or simply reflective of the time. Maybe both. Maybe it doesn't matter. Because when you're the one holding the iron, the debates fade. All that matters is the heat, the shape, the swing. And when your father, for the first time, lets you finish a piece on your own, your hands shake. Not from fear, from pride, from exhaustion. From knowing you did it, alone. He doesn't say anything. Just inspects it, then sets it aside like it's no big deal. But later that night, you find it placed carefully on the rack. Not hidden, not thrown in the scrap pile, on display. That's all the praise you'll ever get, and it's enough. Section 3. The forge doesn't sleep, and neither do you. Not really. Every morning begins the same. You open your eyes and listen for it, the slow, steady pop of coals that made it through the night. If they're dead, you already feel the day slipping sideways. If they're alive, just barely, you move fast. Ash out. Tinder in, bellows groaning like they hate you, and they do. You don't need a rooster. The fire is your rooster. The fire is your clock, your boss, your worst friend. You start your day with smoke in your nose and end it the same way, and in between, you learn what it means to burn. The heat never stops. It curls into your sleeves, seeps into your bones. In summer, you feel like you're being boiled alive in your own sweat. In winter, the forge tricks you. Too close, you blister. Too far, you freeze. There's no middle ground. Not in this place, not in this life. The anvil is your altar. You hammer prayers into it all day long. Clang, clang. A rhythm as old as the village itself. It echoes down alleys, through thatched roofs into dreams. But there's no glory here. No audience, no applause when the sword edge glints just right. Only the customer who picks it up, squints and says, "Bit heavy." You nod. Take the coin, walk back into the smoke, and speaking of coin, let's not get romantic. You don't work for wealth, you work to not starve, you work for a place at the market table, for bread that's half crust, half sigh, for stew with more hope than meat. You work so your mother doesn't have to beg. So your brother can get a pair of boots that last more than one season. Sometimes you barter, a latch for a loaf, a hinge for firewood. One day a man gives you a duck. The duck dies 2 days later. You don't ask why, you just boil it anyway. You start dreaming in iron. You close your eyes and see glowing red. You hear the hiss of quenching even in silence. You feel the hammer's weight even when it's not in your hand. Your body has been trained by repetition. Your shoulders remember more than your mind. And yet, the mistakes still come. A crack you didn't see, a weak point you forgot to reinforce, a handle that twists wrong in a knight's hand, and suddenly it's your fault the world isn't perfect. You apologize quietly, then fix it. Quirky fact: some blacksmiths used urine in the quenching process, not a myth. The ammonia helped. You hold a hot blade, dip it into a barrel of something unspeakable. The smell, unforgettable. The result, effective. You gag. You keep working, the fire bites you daily. Small nips at first, tiny burns on your forearms, a singed eyebrow here, a scorched sleeve there. Over time you stop noticing, the pain fades. The scars stay, your skin is no longer soft, it doesn't peel when it burns. It cracks, like old leather. You used to worry about blisters. Now you worry if you can still close your fist by nightfall. Historians still argue whether medieval blacksmiths were craftsmen or labourers. You know the truth. You're both. You make things that last a lifetime with a body that might not. You create beauty with hands that most people won't touch. One day, a monk comes to you with a broken bell. He watches silently as you work. When it's done, he blesses the forge. You don't laugh. You say thank you, because deep down some part of you believes this place is cursed. Or holy, or both. And when night finally comes, you eat in silence. You scrape the bottom of the pot. You listen to the embers settle into darkness. You don't speak. Not because there's nothing to say, but because everything that matters has already been said through steel and smoke. You lay on your straw mat. Your hands twitch in your sleep. Still hammering, because tomorrow you'll do it all again. Section 4. You wake with your hands already sore. Not from a fresh injury, but from the accumulation of years, each callus built atop the last, like layers of bark on a tree. You open and close your fists slowly, not because you're dramatic, but because your fingers don't always respond right away. Some mornings they forget they belong to you. You sit up, stretch your back, and it creaks like an old door that's never seen oil. That's normal. What's not normal is ease. Nothing is. Your arms are strong, yes. But not strong like a knight's, not clean, chiseled, heroic. Yours are heavy. Dense, built from lifting anvils, not banners. Your shoulders slope from years of leaning over the fire. Your knees crack every time you crouch, and crouching is half the job. The forge waits. Always, you stoke it before the sun fully rises. That means kneeling on damp ground, breathing in yesterday's ash, coaxing a fire back to life with whatever dry scraps remain. And if there are none, you go outside, hack down kindling with a blade you forged yourself, then drag it back in and pray it lights fast. The bellows groan. You groan louder. But the fire finally responds, a slow red glow blooming like a mean smile. Today's orders. You don't know. They don't write them down. People show up. They tell you. Sometimes they yell it from the road. Sometimes they leave broken tools with a coin tucked underneath. Sometimes they ask for miracles. You deliver mediocrity and hope they don't notice. A horse needs new shoes. Not the fun kind, the real kind. You lift each hoof. The animal shifts, its breath fogs in your face. Your back screams by the second one. But you finish the job, you always do. Then comes the plough. Bent, rusted, someone left it in the rain for 2 winters and now they expect it ready by Sunday. You reheat the blade, reshape the iron, and pretend not to hear your shoulder pop out of habit. One small thrill, when the metal bends just right, curves beneath your hammer like it's finally given in. For a second, you feel something close to satisfaction. Then the wind changes, the smoke hits your face, and you're coughing until your ribs ache. You've long since stopped thinking about clean air. The forge has taken your lungs like it takes everything else, slowly and without apology. You cough black, you wipe it on your sleeve, you move on. Quirky fact of the day, you've accidentally swallowed bits of soot so often that you sometimes cough up things that sparkle faintly. You joke to yourself that maybe you're turning into a coal mine. No one else would laugh, so you don't bother sharing. You used to wear a cloth around your face, tried to keep the smoke out, but it got soaked with sweat too fast, and the smell, worse than the fire. Now you go without, raw, open. Like everything else you do, the world outside keeps moving, seasons shift. Leaves fall, rain comes, you barely notice. Inside the forge, it's always the same season, hot, dark, endless. By midday, your shirt sticks to you, not with water. With effort, with the kind of sweat that comes from constant movement, you stop briefly, eat a piece of bread that tastes like metal, and sip ale so thin it might as well be regret. And then it's back. The grindstone, the hammer, the hiss of quenched steel. Every noise is an old companion. Every motion, a groove etched deep in your bones. Historians still debate whether blacksmiths lived long lives. You don't need their arguments. You know how this ends. Your father didn't last past 50. Your grandfather didn't make 40. The forge takes as much as it gives, and it gives just enough to keep you going. As evening falls, your arms begin to ache, a deep, full ache that radiates from elbow to spine. You don't complain. There's no one to listen. And even if they did, what would you say? That you're tired? That the hammer's too heavy today? That your hands feel hollow? No, you just work slower. The last job of the night is a latch. Small, simple, but it goes wrong. You heat it too fast, strike it off center, the piece warps. You sigh quietly and start again. You finish it long after the sun's gone. The village is quiet. The forge is dim. You let the last coals die down, not because you want to, but because you must. Your bed is straw. Lumpy, damp, but it holds your weight, and that's enough. Your hands twitch again in your sleep, still hammering, still working. Section 5. You spend an hour, maybe 2, just staring at your hands. They rest on your knees as you sit by the forge, cooling down from the inside out. They're not your hands anymore. Not the ones you were born with, these are something else, a blacksmith's hands. Forged, not given, each finger shaped by repetition, each scar a lesson remembered the hard way. You stretch them slowly, the knuckles crack, the nails are black where they haven't broken off. There's a cut along your thumb from yesterday, crusted shut. You don't bandage it, you just hope the heat from the forge will keep the worst of the rot away. A few winters back, a neighbour asked if you could make a brooch for his daughter's wedding. Delicate work, fiddly. You tried, spent 2 hours on a twist of iron no bigger than your fingernail. It snapped in the last turn. Your hands weren't made for delicacy. They were made for swinging, lifting, gripping until the bones complained. These hands once cradled your baby sister. You remember it faintly. You were 12, she was new. Warm, you held her like she'd break. Now you could carry an anvil across a field, but not that memory. Not really. It slips away like everything soft does in this life. The forge doesn't care. It never asks. It just demands. Your grip is your identity. People notice your handshake. They say things like firm or like grabbing a tree. You nod, offer a half smile. But deep down, you don't feel strong. You feel worn, like rope that's held too many knots too long. And then there's the shaking. It's worse when the weather turns cold. Your fingers tremble, not enough to stop your work, but enough that you have to pause sometimes, rest them against your apron, pretend you're checking for something. You're not. You're just waiting for the tremor to pass. Your father had it too. You remember him fumbling with a chisel in his later years, muttering to himself like the tool had betrayed him. He never complained. Neither do you. But you recognize the moment. It's coming for you now. Quirky tidbit. There was a superstition once that blacksmiths couldn't be buried in hallowed ground. Something about the fire, the hammer, the raw deal you made with the elements. You laughed when you heard it, half because it's absurd, half because it feels true. You look around. Tools hang in their places, the way you were taught to leave them. The anvil bears the same dent you made last spring. You meant to fix it. You didn't. The dent stayed. Like everything else, today you worked on a gate hinge for the chapel. Small job. They gave you bread in return, stale, but it filled the space in your gut where warmth should be. You didn't eat it all. Saved some for your brother. He'll be by in the morning. You close your hands into fists, then release them. They creak. You feel the lines in your palms like grooves in wood. You wonder, if you pressed them into clay, would someone years from now be able to read your story from the marks? Historians still argue whether the blacksmith's physical toll outweighed his social worth. They can argue. You don't. You know the toll. You carry it. In your wrists, your elbows, your spine, you walk with it, you sleep with it. If you're lucky, you'll die before it turns into a complete collapse, but still, when someone brings you a broken lock or a bent blade or a twisted nail, they look at you with a kind of hope, a kind that says, you can fix this, and most times you can. That counts for something. Night falls, you wash your hands in the barrel outside. The water is black by the end, you dry them on your apron, it doesn't help. Then for no reason at all, you place your palms on the surface of the anvil. Just rest them there. Warm iron. Cold hands. For a second, something close to comfort passes through you. You leave the forge. The door creaks shut behind you, and your hands, even empty, feel like they're still holding something. Section 6. There's no getting around it. Your forge is a smoke box with delusions of grandeur. You step inside each morning and the air greets you like a punch. Not fresh, not crisp. Just thick, grey, and instantly in your throat. You cough because that's what you do. It's not dramatic anymore. It's just your morning routine. Like some people stretch, you sputter. You can't really describe the smell to someone who hasn't lived it. It's not just smoke, it's old heat. Wet ash, rusted iron, sweat. That peculiar sweetness of burnt hoof when the horseshoes go wrong. It clings to your skin like a second coat, seeps into your hair, your nails, your dreams. You've woken more than once to find your pillow stained with it. The forge doesn't ventilate, it never did, it's not a design flaw. It's a feature. The smoke is just part of the process, like the hammer, like the fire. You can't separate them. If you could, someone smarter would have done it centuries ago. You try to ignore it. Some days you tie a cloth over your nose and mouth. But that just traps the heat and makes your face sweat. You end up breathing through your eyes, which is as uncomfortable as it sounds, so you get used to it. The sting, the haze, the light that cuts through the smoke in golden ribbons, like God decided to make you a cathedral, then forgot to clean the windows. When you were younger, you thought the smoke might make you blind. Now you think maybe it has, a little, not all at once, but slowly, in increments. Your left eye waters more than it should. Your right eye squints at things it used to recognize. You adjust. You squint better. Quirky tidbit. You once heard a tale that blacksmiths were immune to demons because the smoke drove them off. It made sense at the time. You felt like a demon yourself by midweek. The air isn't just bad, it's mean. It waits until your lungs are open from the hammer swings, then dives in, scratches around, and settles somewhere it shouldn't. You don't breathe deep anymore, you breathe short, sharp, like someone rationing their own body. You know it's hurting you. You hear the rasp in your sleep, feel the weight in your chest when you wake. But what's the alternative? Not working? That's a luxury for people who inherit land or marry smart. You were born into this. It's not a career, it's a sentence. Historians still argue whether forges were truly as toxic as we imagine, or if blacksmiths simply adapted. You have no doubts, the air is poison, but it's your poison. You've made peace with it the way sailors make peace with storms or millers with flour in their lungs. The tools don't help, they're coated in soot, layered with grime. Your hammer slips more than it used to. The grip's worn smooth, but your palms are rough enough to compensate. You never clean them, not really. There's no point, they get dirty again before you finish one job. Sometimes a customer walks in and wrinkles their nose. Smells strong in here, they say. You shrug. This isn't a bakery. You don't apologize for the air. The forge doesn't apologize for feeding their entire town. You take breaks, short ones. Stand in the doorway, let the outside air slap you, not because it's fresh, but because it's not trying to smother you. You lean against the door frame and look at the sky, just to remind yourself it still exists. Then you go back in, because the blade isn't finished. The latch still squeaks, and someone needs to believe you're halfway to being a wizard, even if your magic is mostly grit and lung damage. The smoke rises. You squint through it, and you swing again. Section 7. You've got a love-hate relationship with your tools. Mostly hate. The love part shows up once a season, maybe, when everything goes right. When the iron bends just so. When the hammer feels like an extension of your arm and not a small punishment from the gods. But that's rare. The rest of the time, your tools are traitors. They slip when your grip is weakest. They chip when the job's almost done, and they bite, not gently. They gouge, scratch, burn, crush. You've lost count of how many times your tongs have snapped shut on your fingers, how many nails have leapt sideways into your shins, how many files have slipped and tried to shave off a knuckle. They're not fancy tools, nothing gold-plated, just iron, wood, and stubbornness. Most of them you made yourself. Others were inherited, your father's hammer, his father's tongs. Worn smooth in all the wrong places, but still here, like you. The hammer is the worst offender. It looks simple, feels honest. But it has moods, swings easy one day, fights you the next. Miss your mark by half an inch and it bounces back with a clang that rattles your elbow up to your teeth. Sometimes you swear it's laughing. The grindstone spins like it's got somewhere to be. You feed it a blade. Sparks fly, you lean too close and the grit bites your cheek, just a scratch. Adds to the collection. You don't even wipe the blood away anymore. What's the point? It'll be soot-covered in 5 minutes. Quirky tidbit. Some blacksmiths used animal bones as rudimentary polishing tools. You tried it once. Smelled terrible. Polished well. Your shop stank like old stew for a week, but the blade gleamed. Worth it? You're still not sure. Then there's the file. That cursed little strip of metal that looks harmless, but will take a layer of skin faster than a snake in tall grass. You treat it with respect, like a wild animal you've trapped in a stick. It lives in a drawer by itself, partly for safety, partly because you're scared of what it might do if it mingles with the others. And the tongs, don't get started. They're like ornery cousins, useful, yes, but always at the wrong angle. You adjust, squeeze, lift, they twist. They drop the blade just as it's coming out of the fire. You scramble, you burn your wrist. You shout something ancient and unspeakable. The forge doesn't care, it never has. Historians still argue whether medieval blacksmiths developed early forms of tool ergonomics. You could tell them, no, we just bled a lot and adjusted. That's your version of design innovation. Bleed, then build around it. You've tried to improve them. Wrapped handles in leather. Filed edges smooth, but nothing lasts. The fire eats leather. The metal warps. Even wood handles splinter with time, until you're working with something that feels more like a weapon than a tool. They say a good smith knows his tools like a knight knows his sword. That might be true, but your tools aren't partners. They're problems you've learned to live with. Still, when you pick them up, every morning without fail, they settle into your hands like they belong. They don't fit well, they fit familiarly. There's a difference. Sometimes you think of the day you'll put them down for good. Let them hang. Let the rust win, but not today. Today the latch needs shaping. The axe needs straightening, the hinge needs mending, so you roll your sleeves up, flex your cracked fingers, and reach for the hammer again. Section 8, everyone needs you. That's the blessing, that's the curse. You're not famous, you're not rich, but your work, it's everywhere. It's on every door hinge in the village, every cart wheel, every gate latch, shovel blade, fire poker, horseshoe, pot hook, and cooking spit. You are the invisible backbone of this place. The knight rides proud, gleaming in armor you repaired with one hand and cursed with the other. The merchant locks his chest with a key you forged at midnight while your dinner went cold. Even the baker, he cuts his dough with a blade you sharpened 2 harvests ago. They all depend on you, which means they all come knocking, sometimes literally. They show up early before the fire's even awake, or late, just as you're trying to sit down, boots off, hands soaking in a bucket of cool water. Just one thing, they say. Quick job. You nod, say nothing, and go back to work. Again. A farmer wants a ploughshare fixed before dawn. A mother brings you a broken kettle hook, apologizing like she caused the metal to break with bad thoughts. A boy, no more than 10, brings in his father's cracked chisel with eyes that say, "Please don't tell him I did it," and you help them all. Not because you're generous, though maybe you are. Not because you're a saint, far from it, but because it's expected. You're the blacksmith. You fix what breaks. That's your role. That's who you are. But sometimes it gets to you. Sometimes you're halfway through fixing a barrel ring when someone asks if you can sharpen their shears. You say yes, automatically. Then forget. Then remember when they show up 3 days later disappointed, and you feel like the worst person in the world for forgetting. For once, you wanted to just sit, to breathe, but breathing doesn't fix shears. There's no such thing as a quiet day. Every hour, someone needs something, and with it, a little piece of you. A bit of time, a flicker of focus, another hour of your bones grinding against the job. They don't pay well, that's the truth. Sometimes they don't pay at all. Next week, they promise, when the rains stop, or after the wheat sells, you nod. What else can you do? Quirky little truth, sometimes people bring gifts instead of coin, a half wheel of cheese. A pouch of dried apples. One man gave you a single glove, just one. He never explained, you took it anyway because you can't eat pride. And cheese keeps better. There are moments, though, tiny ones, that make it all sit a little easier in your chest. When a young girl holds out a dented lantern and watches wide-eyed as you tap it back into shape. When an old man who can barely walk insists on standing to thank you for making a cane that doesn't wobble. When the butcher's son tells you he wants to be like you and you almost laugh. Almost. Historians sometimes say the medieval blacksmith was a figure of quiet authority. That part rings true. People don't argue with you much, they just wait. Even when you're behind, even when you're grumpy, they know you'll come through. Eventually, and in your quieter moments, rare as they are, you think about that, about how your work will outlive you. The gates you repaired will swing for decades. The nails you forged will hold someone's roof through 2 winters, maybe 3. The blade you made will pass to a son, then a grandson, and carry with it the memory of your hands. No one sings songs about you, there's no feast in your name, but every time someone walks through a door without it falling off the hinges, they're walking through something you made. And that's something, even if they never say thank you. Section 9 piece is bad for business. It's a strange truth, you don't say it out loud, of course, wouldn't be right. But deep down, you know what happens when the swords stop clashing and the walls stop falling. Your hammer gets quiet. During times of war, you work like the forge is possessed. Soldiers need blades, lords need armor mended, even villagers get defensive, reinforcing doors, crafting spear tips, stockpiling horseshoes like prayers. You barely sleep. You eat over your anvil. You burn through coal faster than your supplier can deliver. And the coin flows, not a river, but more than usual. Steady, heavy, honest, but then the truce comes. The treaty is signed, the knights ride home, and just like that, the orders dry up. No one needs a new sword when the last one hasn't seen blood in a season. No one cares about a dented helmet when the threat is gone. Instead, they come with small jobs. Fix this hinge, sharpen this sickle, can you repair the buckle on my pack? I can't pay now, but the barley harvests soon. You nod, always nod. Because peace may soothe the land, but it starves the forge, and you're not the only one who notices. The leather worker down the road starts cutting thinner straps to stretch his supplies. The farrier sharpens his tone when someone asks for a discount. Everyone's smiling thinner, holding their breath. You remember the last real order you got before this lull, a long sword, finely balanced for a knight headed to the border. Took you a full week to perfect the grip. He never picked it up. Rumor is he lost his leg in a skirmish. Or maybe just decided peace suited him better. The sword still hangs in the back, untouched. It's too nice to melt down. Too useless to sell, so it sits, collecting dust, a relic of better, worse times. Quirky fact. Some smiths in old towns were paid a standing fee by the local lord, just to keep the forge ready. A hot forge meant readiness. It meant power. You don't have a lord like that. Yours barely remembers your name. Instead, you patch cooking pots, and no, it's not beneath you, but it doesn't feed the same fire. There's a strange weight in your chest when business slows, not just fear, not just hunger. A kind of fading, like the forge itself forgets its purpose, the flames still burn. But they don't dance. Historians argue whether blacksmiths truly relied on war for survival. Some say peacetime allowed them to focus on art, on creativity, on legacy. You disagree? Peacetime means patching the same old rake for the same old farmer who'll still forget your name come harvest. Peacetime means stretching your coal pile across 3 weeks instead of 1. Peacetime means hoping someone breaks a wagon wheel just so you can buy eggs. And yet, you still show up, still stoke the fire, still sharpen that one axe head a travelling hunter insists on polishing every 3 weeks. Because even in peace, things break. Even in peace, something always needs fixing, and you're still here. Waiting, hammer in hand. Section 10. You'd think there'd be an end to it. A moment where you put the hammer down, wipe your hands and say, "That's enough for today." Maybe stretch, lean back, enjoy a breeze through the window you'll never have time to fix. Maybe sit by the fire like a normal person and let your joints catch up to your body. But no. There is no end of day. There's just less light. You work until the last glow in the forge begins to sputter. And even then, something always lingers. A blade to check, a latch to cool. A strip of leather to wind around a tool before it splinters your palm again. There's always something small, always one more. Sometimes it's just cleaning, wiping soot off the anvil, stacking iron scraps, turning the grindstone a few times just to make sure it doesn't seize up overnight. These are the little rituals that say, I'm still in control, even if the fire is fading. But you're not really, your eyes sting. Your back curves like the bow you never got around to finishing. You stand in one spot for so long that your legs forget how to move without pain. And when you do move, when you finally step out into the cold air, you feel it all at once. The weight, the heat, the sheer gravity of everything you carried without realizing. Your arms don't swing anymore when you walk, they hang, like tools themselves, heavy from use. You get home, if you can call it that, a narrow room with a cot, a stool, and a wall that creaks louder than your knees. There's bread on the shelf. Stale, but your teeth are still good enough mostly. You eat without tasting. You sit without thinking, and when the wind howls outside, you barely notice. The forge already took the worst of the day from you. Quirky bit. There's an old saying among smiths, the fire eats the day and spits back the night. You never understood it as a boy, now it's the only prayer you still remember. Because when night comes, it doesn't mean rest, it just means you're done being watched. You're alone with the burn in your arms, the ash in your lungs, and the sound of metal still ringing in your ears, even though the hammer's long since stopped. Historians love to paint a picture of balance, of blacksmiths as steady anchors in their communities. That's not wrong, but balance isn't peace. It's endurance. The village needs you to be there, and you are. Every single day, every single evening, every single ache. But no one counts the hours you work, because your work never really ends. You fall asleep without realizing. Not from comfort, from depletion, and in the dark you dream of sparks that don't burn. Of coals that never need stoking, of silence. Section 11, sleep is supposed to be the reward, right? That sweet escape, a few hours of nothing, where the weight of the day slips off and the body resets. That's the dream anyway, but not for you. For you, sleep is a negotiation. Your bed is a sack stuffed with straw that's lost all its cushion. It crinkles, pokes, shifts. There's a dip in the middle where your body always ends up, no matter how you start. The blanket is coarse. You pulled it from your uncle's attic years ago and it still smells like the hayloft. You lie on your side, knees curled, hands tucked between your thighs for warmth. Your fingers twitch, not from cold. From habit, they mimic the shape of the tongs, the angle of the hammer. The weight of the work doesn't leave just because the sun does. Your dreams are cluttered, not nightmares exactly, just labor. You dream of hinges, of nails without heads, of wagon wheels that won't roll true no matter how many times you shape the rim. You wake mid-swing sometimes, arm flinching against the wall, breath caught, heart pounding from the echo of something you didn't finish. There's a burn on your forearm that itches under the blanket. You ignore it. Scratching will only reopen it, but it hums beneath your skin like a little ember that refused to die with the fire. Some nights the pain is loud. Not sharp, just constant. Your shoulders throb. Your spine stiffens. Your hips ache like they've been used for hauling, not walking. You turn slowly, trying not to groan. There's no one to hear you, but still, you try to keep it quiet. Pain, like pride, prefers silence. Quirky little truth. Some old smiths believed that the fire carried part of your soul, that the longer you worked the forge, the more it took from you. Not all at once, just a little each day. You never believed it, until now. Now you wonder what else it's taken. You can't remember the last time you sang, or laughed without coughing, and yet even with the pain, you doze. Because the body needs it, because the morning will come, because you can't afford not to. You drift in and out, the rooster crows too early, you groan, stretch, and hear something pop that shouldn't. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed, feel the cold rush your feet and wince at the first few steps, but you walk, because that's what you do. The forge needs tending, someone's latch is loose, someone's scythe is dull. The work is waiting, you rinse your face in the cold basin, catch your reflection in the water just briefly. You look older than you should. The soot doesn't wash off like it used to. Some of it lives in your skin now. Historians sometimes describe blacksmiths as solitary but vital. You'd agree with both. You're alone. But not invisible. They all need you. You tie on your apron. You open the shop door, and the smoke greets you like a brother. Section 12. The hammer swings before you're fully awake. It always does. Your body knows the rhythm before your mind catches up. You stand at the anvil, boots barely laced, hair damp from the wash basin, and the hammer's already rising, already falling. You don't think. You move, because stopping to think would mean stopping altogether, and that's not allowed. Today it's horseshoes, 5 sets. The stable master came by last night, coin in hand and urgency in his voice. Something about a merchant caravan arriving soon, and all the good animals need to look the part. Never mind if your back is bent from the last order. Never mind that your shoulder didn't quite settle right after yesterday. You heat the iron till it glows the color of sunrise through dust. Then you bend it, shape it, hammer it flat, again and again. By the second set, your arms are shaking. By the third, your grip's slipping. By the fourth, you've stopped feeling your fingertips. That's not good, but it's not new either, and when the last one is cooling in the barrel, you let yourself sit. Just for a moment, that's when the pain really arrives. It waits until the job is done. Courteous, in a cruel sort of way. Your elbows lock, your knees burn. Your spine protests with a quiet fury you've grown used to. You lean back, hands in your lap, and stare at them like they belong to someone else. You flex them, slowly. These aren't just hands anymore, they're survivors, twisted, strong, raw. The skin is patchwork, scars from the forge, scars from your tools. Scars from accidents no one else even remembers. Quirky fact, some smiths used walnut oil to soften their hands. You tried it once. All it did was make the hammer slip more. You gave it up. A smith's hands aren't meant to be soft. They're meant to hold the weight of a day and not drop it. You glance at your workbench. The file's still there. So is the broken buckle someone left last week. You meant to fix it, just hadn't found the right moment. Maybe tonight, maybe not. Outside, the sun's higher now. The street's waking. Someone's shouting about bread. A child runs past the window laughing. You almost smile. Almost. Historians still argue whether medieval blacksmiths were respected as artisans or merely tolerated as necessary workers. You've never cared about the labels. Respect doesn't matter when your fingers don't close right, when your hearing's half gone from the clang of metal on metal, when your days blend into each other like steam into smoke. Someone knocks at the door. You grunt. They enter anyway. It's the cooper's boy. His face is red from running. He holds out a cracked hoop and says his father needs it by nightfall. You take it, nod, and set it aside. You don't say, "I'm tired." You don't say, "Come back tomorrow." You just add it to the pile. Because that's what the forge demands. And your hands, those hands, already know what to do. Section 13. You smell like regret. Not the poetic kind, the kind that clings to your skin and follows you like a dog you didn't invite. A mix of smoke, sweat, singed hair, old iron, and something deeper, something baked into the fabric of your clothes and your life. You've stopped noticing it, but others haven't. People step back when they talk to you. They try to hide it, pressing a sleeve to their nose, glancing sideways, but you see it. You smell yourself when you pass water. You catch it in the folds of your tunic. You live inside it. Bathing helps, in theory. But when? With what water? The stream near the village is ice in the mornings, muck by noon. And even if you did wash thoroughly, which is a luxury you afford once a month if you're lucky, your skin still carries the forge. It's under your nails, in your pores. It's permanent. Your clothes don't stand a chance. They're layers of patched wool and sweat-soaked linen, stained every shade of grey and brown. Once, a tailor offered to sew you a new apron in exchange for fixing her husband's garden tools. You agreed. She measured. She even smiled, but when she handed it over, the look on her face when she caught a whiff of your old one said everything. You wore the new apron for a day. Then it started to smell like the rest. Now it hangs on a nail. Decoration, quirky truth. Some believe that the blacksmith's scent warded off evil, that demons and devils turned up their noses and fled. You sometimes joke that it's not evil spirits you're keeping away, it's just everyone else. Even animals flinch. The baker's dog used to bark when you came near. Now it just avoids you entirely, tail tucked, nose twitching. You're not offended. You wouldn't get close to yourself either if you had the choice. You try not to care. But some nights when you sit alone, back aching, a half-eaten hunk of bread in your hand, you think about what it would be like to smell like pine soap or fresh grass. Just once, to walk into a room and not be followed by a fog of fatigue and fire. Historians write about medieval hygiene with clinical detachment. Buckets, basins, lavender, rose water, as if cleanliness were a matter of routine, as if the scent of toil could be rinsed off with one good scrub. You'd laugh if your throat weren't so dry from coal dust. You've tried perfumes, a few drops of oil behind the ear, gifted from a merchant passing through. It lasted half a morning before vanishing beneath the truth of your work. Your scent isn't a surface, it's a statement. And there's something strangely honest about that. People can pretend all they like, dress fine, speak soft, but your presence tells the truth before your mouth ever opens. You are fire. You are effort. You are the one who makes the quiet things strong. You step outside, late afternoon sun on your face. A breeze passes through, carries your scent with it. You wonder who downwind just wrinkled their nose. And then you shrug. The forge waits. So do the nails. So does the day you haven't finished. You turn, step back inside, and the smoke welcomes you like a second skin. Section 14. You are everywhere and nowhere. Walk through the village and point to a thing that works, and chances are you've touched it. The door latch that clicks shut, yours. The bucket handle that hasn't snapped yet, yours. The hinges on the chapel, the gate bolt at the mill, the knife that still slices even after 3 winters of bad sharpening. Yours, but when they speak of builders, they mean the masons. When they speak of order, they mean the reeve. When they speak of beauty, they mean the clothier's daughter who stitches roses into sleeves. You're behind it all. But no one says your name in a song. You don't resent them, not really. There's no time for resentment when there's work, but there's a quiet ache when someone marvels at a thing you shaped and then walks past you without a nod. You're the tool that made the tools. You remember once, a wedding feast. The bride's father stood and thanked the baker, the brewer, even the candlemaker. He gestured toward the fine knives on the table and said, "These were brought in from the city." You blinked. You had made those knives. 3 weeks of filing, grinding, polishing until your wrists gave out. You never corrected him. What would be the point? You've learned not to expect recognition. You find satisfaction in function, in the quiet confidence of hinges that don't squeak, of blades that don't wobble. Still, there are moments when you wonder, who would notice if you were gone? Quirky tidbit. Blacksmiths in some villages were considered lucky, others cursed. A necessary evil, the man who worked with fire and shaped iron like a god but wasn't one. People whispered about your kind in corners. Said too much time around the anvil changed a man. Said your arms grew too strong, your eyes too sharp. You don't confirm or deny. You just swing the hammer. There's a boy who sometimes watches from the alley, big eyes. Silent. You caught him mimicking your movements once, arms flailing like a scarecrow in a windstorm. He grinned when he saw you watching. Then vanished. You don't know his name, but sometimes you wonder if that's how it starts. Not with a ceremony, not with a choice, just a boy who watches. A boy who begins to dream in sparks and iron. Historians debate whether medieval blacksmiths felt pride or simply duty. You don't debate it. You feel both, every time something fits just right, every time a tool does what it should. Every time you see a man ride off on a horse shod by your hand and return whole, you don't need applause, but sometimes it would be nice to hear your name spoken with warmth. Just once, so you keep working, not for praise. But because it matters, because the gate won't swing on its own, because someone will come and they'll bring a problem shaped like a broken thing. And you'll fix it, like you always do, like you always have. Section 15, the hammer never stops. Even when your arms ache, even when your eyes blur. Even when the day stretches longer than your shadow and the sun's dropped below the rooftops. You thought once there might be a time when you'd reach the end of your list. A quiet afternoon. A fire burning low, a moment where everything was fixed. That was a foolish thought. The forge has its own rules. For every hinge you mend, another breaks. For every chain you forge, a blade dulls. Someone always needs something, and if they don't now, they will tomorrow. So you work. There's no bell to mark the end of your shift, no steward with a clipboard and a grateful nod, just you. The hammer, the anvil, the hiss of hot metal plunged into water. The smell of steam, ash and endurance. Tonight it's nails, not the glamorous kind. Not swords, not armor, just nails. Hundreds of them, dull-headed, rough, needed by dawn for a barn roof being rebuilt 2 fields over. The carpenter paid half up front and promised the rest in apples. You don't argue. You just hammer. Quirky fact, back then, nails were so valuable that people tore down old houses just to salvage them. You once heard of a family that built an entire hut using only reclaimed nails from a burned barn. That barn? You supplied it years ago. The thought lingers. The hammer handle is worn to your grip. It's the only tool that feels like part of your body now. You switch hands sometimes, not for balance, but because your right wrist won't straighten without making a noise like a creaking beam. You lose track of time. Again, the forge glows red, then orange, then dulls to a sleepy amber. You stoke it gently, whisper to it maybe. You're not sure anymore if that's habit or superstition. Historians still argue whether blacksmiths worked by candlelight or let the fire guide them. You don't use candles, too fragile. The forge is light enough, and besides, your eyes are trained now, part smoke, part instinct. You see what you need. The rest doesn't matter. Eventually your hand slips, just once. The hammer glances off the nail head and crushes your thumb. Not enough to break it, just enough to remind you it's there. You suck in a breath. Shake it off and keep swinging, because stopping would mean letting the work win. And you can't afford that. Not tonight, not any night. You glance at the growing pile of nails. Not enough, never enough. But closer, the hammer swings again and again. And again. Section 16, you curse the iron sometimes, not loudly. Not in rage, just under your breath, like a man muttering at the rain that won't stop falling, because the iron never truly listens. It bends when it wants, cracks when it shouldn't, and mocks you every time you think you've finally figured it out. Today it's a wagon axle, thick, crooked. Brought in by a merchant with more beard than manners. He tells you it must be done by tomorrow, then leaves before you can say, this will take a day and a half, minimum, so you mutter, then get to work, and the forge breathes deep when you feed it. The flames leap, eager. The iron takes its place in the coals, dull grey at first, then red, then yellow. You watch the colours, feel the heat on your cheeks, count the heartbeats. Too soon it'll be soft, too late it'll be ruined. You drag it out with tongs, position it on the anvil, the hammer rises. And the iron fights back, it resists, springs. Refuses to curve the way it should. You sweat harder, adjust your stance. Hit again, and again, and again. This is what no one tells you about your craft. Sometimes you do everything right, and it still goes wrong. You learn to hide the frustration. It doesn't help. The fire doesn't care if you're angry, the anvil doesn't respond to pleading, and the iron just is, cold, hot. Stubborn, eternal, quirky little truth. Some old smiths believed that certain pieces of iron had spirits in them, that they were alive in a way, that they remembered being pulled from the earth and punished every time you shaped them. You wouldn't say you believe it, but there are days when the metal seems to snarl beneath your hammer. Today is one of those days. Eventually, you win. Not because the iron yields, but because you outlast it. Your arms ache, your eyes burn, but the axle is straight enough to pass. You let it cool slowly, whispering to it like an apology. Your hands throb when you set the hammer down. You flex your fingers one at a time. They don't quite close anymore, not fully. You've noticed that more lately. The joints stay swollen longer. The knuckles grind like stones. Historians still debate whether smiths were revered for their endurance or pitied for it. You've never been asked for your opinion, but here's the truth. Endurance becomes identity. Your pain is the proof that the work mattered, and yet, in the quiet moments, when the forge dims, when the streets are silent, you wonder what it's all built toward. Not glory. Not ease, just another day, another swing. Another stubborn piece of iron. You wrap the axle in cloth, leave it by the door. The merchant will return. He won't say thank you. He won't notice the fresh burn on your forearm. He'll just take the axle, grumble about the price and leave. And you'll start again. Because the iron doesn't care that you're tired, and neither does the next job. Section 17, you stop expecting the pain to go away. It's not just something you carry anymore, it's something you are. The ache lives in your wrists, in the hollow of your knees, in the small of your back where the muscles used to stretch clean and now pull tight like old rope. You don't remember what it feels like to wake up without stiffness. You just know better than to rush the first few steps. If you stand too fast, your knees curse you. If you twist the wrong way, your shoulder clicks like a misaligned hinge. You've learned to move slow, deliberate, like a man handling fire, even when the fire's gone out. But you keep going, not in spite of the pain, but through it. This is something no one sees. Not the villagers who knock on your door with another broken latch, not the noble who sends for a new bridle bit as if it grows on trees, not even the apprentice you took on last spring, who still thinks the work is just about sparks and strength. No, the pain isn't a problem to solve, it's part of the price. Quirky fact, old smiths had a saying, if it doesn't hurt, you're doing it wrong. Maybe they meant it as a joke, maybe not. Either way, you've lived long enough to know that discomfort is the tax you pay for shaping the world. Because that's what it is, what you do. You shape things. You bend iron, you mend the broken, you take raw, useless pieces and give them purpose. You beat them into something that matters. The irony, that's exactly what the forge does to you. It hammers you, heats you, cools you fast and uneven until your edges chip. Until the grain of you becomes brittle in places you never thought could break. Historians still argue whether blacksmithing was a noble art or just a necessity. You don't argue. You know what it is. It's pain with a rhythm. It's hurt that leads to something. It's sacrifice without ceremony. Sometimes when you're alone, you look at your hands, not to admire the strength, but to count what you've lost: mobility, speed. Sensation in your fingertips. There's a numbness now that never leaves, like touching the world through wool. But even through that you work, you still feel the hammer, the shape of the iron beneath it. You don't need sight to know when something's wrong. The resistance tells you, the recoil, the pitch of the metal's cry. There's a quiet pride in that, a strength not just of muscle, but of will. Of doing the work, even when your body begs you to stop, even when the forge becomes a blur and the anvil looks more like a threat than a tool, but you keep going. Because this is who you are now, not just a man at the forge, but the forge itself. The heat, the scars, the stubborn refusal to quit. You don't say these things out loud, you wouldn't know how, so instead you swing and keep on swinging. Section 18, night doesn't mean rest. Not for you. For most it's when the shutters close, the stew pot empties, the hearth dies down to embers. But in your world it's just a change in light. The work remains. Sometimes you think you've finished. You sit down, pull off your boots, rub your fingers along your aching forearm, and then you remember. The blade cooling on the shelf, the iron bar that needs to be drawn out, the hinge someone begged you to mend by sunrise. So you stand again. The forge is quieter at night. The flames lick slower. The coals are a deeper red, like sleeping eyes that still watch. The village hum has gone still, but you can hear the bellows creak. The iron ping as it settles, your own breath, slow and gritty, you move carefully. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because night work carries a different weight. The mistakes feel louder, the hammer's ring cuts deeper into the silence. One wrong move and you wake the whole world. Quirky fact, you once heard that some smiths would sleep beside their forges, a hand resting near the coals to keep the flame alive. You tried it once. The floor was cold, your hand blistered, but part of you understood the impulse. The forge feels like a thing that shouldn't be left alone. You keep a lantern nearby now, its oil nearly gone. It flickers as you work, casting your shadow up the walls, big, hulking, stooped. You don't recognize it anymore. You've become someone shaped by repetition. A silhouette hammered thin by time. The job tonight is small. A blade. Nothing fancy, but the edge must be clean. It's for a shepherd to shear a sick sheep in the morning. You heat it slowly, draw the metal thin, grind it with steady hands that betray no hesitation, just weariness. Historians still debate whether blacksmiths kept night hours. You'd say they didn't keep anything. They adapted. When the orders pile up, when the village sleeps, when the work won't finish itself, you do what you must. You bank the fire carefully. You've learned that skill better than any. Stirring the coals just enough, covering the embers with ash so they'll still breathe come morning. It's like tucking in a child you never had. Sometimes you talk to the forge. Just a murmur. You don't expect a reply, but there's comfort in speaking where no one listens. You say things like, almost done, or that'll hold, or sometimes nothing at all, just let the sigh escape, and then finally you lie down, not in a bed. Just on the mat near the wall, wrapped in your coat. The fire glows behind your eyelids, and even in sleep your fingers curl. Still shaping something. Section 19. Legacy creeps in quietly. You don't think about it much, not at first. You're too busy surviving the day, chasing coin, fighting your own body, but eventually it taps you on the shoulder, usually when you least expect it. Like now, you're repairing a gate bolt. Simple job. Rusted through, snapped clean where the hinge bends, you grind the old edge down, fit in a patch. It's work you've done 100 times, maybe more, and then your apprentice asks, how do you know when it's strong enough? You pause. Mid-swing, hammer raised, you blink at the iron, then at him. It's the kind of question no one's asked you in years. You want to say, you just know, but that's not enough. Not now, so you lower the hammer, hold up the piece. You explain the feel of the grain in the metal, the pitch of the strike, the way a clean bond sounds different than a weak one. He listens, eyes wide. And you realize, for the first time in a long time, that you're not working alone. He's been there for a while now, helping where he can, quiet. Quick, not strong yet, but eager, reminds you of yourself in the way young branches echo old trees. Quirky fact, some villages named their forges after the blacksmith who trained there, not because of ego, but because their touch lived on in every piece that left the fire. It was a way of saying, this man mattered. This work has roots. You don't care about your name on a sign, but you care about the boy. You see him copy your movements, the way he watches your hands. He's learning, not just the craft, but the rhythm, the patience, the quiet persistence that forges more than just iron. You start leaving notes. Chalk marks, little reminders by the tongs beside the grindstone, not much. Just enough to guide him when you're not looking, because someday you won't be. Historians debate whether trade was passed on through blood or choice. You know better. It's passed through observation, through blisters, through evenings like this, where one pair of hands begins to mirror another. You finish the bolt. The boy carries it to the farmer's house. You watch him go. His stride is still light, his shirt still unstained by years of smoke. But his hands are starting to understand. You return to the forge, stir the coals. Sit a moment longer, and for the first time in years you think, maybe this won't end with you. Maybe the hammer keeps swinging even after your grip is gone. Section 20. You're slower now. Not weak, not broken. Just slower. The way a tree creaks before it leans, the way iron cools a little faster in your hands than it used to. You don't mind. There's something honest in slowness, something steady, something earned. You still wake early, still light the forge. But now you sit more than you stand. You let the apprentice do the heavy lifting. He's stronger now. Shoulders broadening, hands calloused. He doesn't flinch at the heat anymore. You watch him with a quiet kind of pride you'll never say aloud. He stokes the coals like you taught him, gentle but firm, coaxing the fire awake instead of commanding it. You sip tea. Not because you love it, but because it warms your hands without needing another swing. This morning, he asks if he can try shaping the blade on his own. You nod. Then you watch, and he does well. Not perfect, but well. The edge is clean, the curve holds. He's learning not just the steps, but the feel. The pause before the strike, the sound of good steel, the patience to let the work unfold. Quirky truth. Some believed that a blacksmith who trained a worthy successor would be welcomed in the afterlife with a warm forge and endless iron, no fire to stoke, no tools to break. Just the peace of knowing you left something behind. You don't believe in stories, not really. But today, you like that one. The boy brings you the finished piece. You hold it. Weigh it in your hands. You nod. That's all he needs. And then you do something strange. You set your hammer down, not because you're done forever, but because, for once, the day doesn't need more of you. You step outside. The village hums in the distance. A child laughs. The chapel bell rings soft and far away. The sky is wide and open. The wind carries the faint scent of pine and something baking, bread, maybe. You lean against the doorframe and breathe it in. You don't feel old. You feel full, like a fire that's burned long and steady, warming more than just the room it lives in. The forge crackles behind you. The apprentice hammers once, then again. The sound rings out across the morning like a promise. And you smile, just a little. Now let your breath slow. You're not in the forge anymore. The heat has faded. The clanging has stilled. The hammer is silent. And the fire, just embers now, tucked safely beneath a bed of ash, waiting for tomorrow. Picture yourself walking away. The anvil behind you, the tools hung neatly in their places, your apron folded. Your hands no longer aching, just resting. There's no rush, no orders. No one knocking at the door. The path is soft beneath your feet. The sky stretches above you in quiet blues and silver greys. It's early evening, that in-between hour where the world hushes and everything feels suspended, peaceful. You pass a stone wall, moss-covered, ancient. There are wildflowers blooming at its base, swaying in the breeze, lavender, chamomile. A few dandelions, yellow and brave. You stop, you breathe in the scent. It's not smoke, it's clean, cool air, and it fills you. Further on, there's a bench beneath an old tree. You sit, the wood is smooth and warm from the sun. You tilt your head back, eyes half closed, listening to the leaves above you. They whisper, just barely. Like lullabies in a language you don't need to understand. In the distance, someone is hammering. The rhythm is slow. Confident, familiar, you don't need to turn and look. You know who it is. The wind shifts, and now it's just you. Sitting, breathing, there's no pain here. No weight on your shoulders, no smoke in your lungs, just rest. Let that feeling sink in, let your hands go soft, let the edges of the day blur. The fire is out, the forge is quiet, you are safe. You are still, sleep now, there's nothing left to fix tonight.